Hey, what's happening, everybody? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and I've got a brand new video for you. Welcome to part 8 of What If Deku Had a Full Counter. Please, sit back and relax because you are in for a treat. With that little intro out of the way, let's get this story going, shall we? Today was the day of the much-anticipated sports festival. The students had been training for this for a while, and felt ready to show agencies what they were capable of. The 1A students were waiting to be called out by midnight, much like the other first-year classes. Midoriya was in his own head. He was looking at his reflection with his phone, activating his markings and tracing them with his fingers. The young man's quirk abilities had spiked in strength since the USJ. The Kitsune markings would appear every time he prepared and used his quirk. Midoriya found the connections between his heritage and his quirk fascinating. He wanted to learn more. Todoroki approached his cousin, pulling him from his trance. Izuku, I don't plan on holding anything back, so you better promise me you'll do the same. You know it, Sho-chan. Let's give it our all. It doesn't matter how hard you half-wits try. I'll take both of you down along with the rest of these extras. Kiyo wandered the Coliseum in the general direction of the reserved seat for pro heroes. This wasn't the Spitfire's first sports festival, as he had gone in the past to personally pick students with potential for internships. But this was his son's and nephew's first festival. There was no way Kiyo was going to miss this. The beaming father rounded the corner without looking and ran into a rather large person. Oop, sorry about that. Warm orange flames danced off the hulking body before the comparably smaller fire breather. Endeavor looked down at his cousin, both stunned and elated. Kiyo's expression, on the other hand, turned stern. Hisashi, it's wonderful to see you again. You've gone softer in your age, Endeavor, speaking so casually to a former sidekick like this. I can't be casual with my best friend. The flame hero tried to hug his family member. Endeavor's arms found no embrace. Kiyo had ducked and danced around Endeavor, standing behind the larger man. I ran into your old man about a week or so ago, and there was a moment where I mistook him for you. I bet you don't even remember the promise you made to me. Endeavor eyed Kiyo as he spoke. The number 2 hero knew of his cousin's disdain for Azulon, and didn't like where this was going. My father is a good man. He and my mother did their best to raise us, and I have no idea what promise you're referring to. That's bull and you know it. Your father is horrible, and that's putting it lightly. And the promise I'm referring to was one I made you swear to after your wedding. Kiyo got in Endeavor's face and scowled at him despite the 8-inch difference in height. The Spitfire hero wasn't intimidated by size. You promised me that you would never become the kind of man that Azulon is, especially when you'd father children. It's clear you haven't looked in a mirror lately, because you're practically his spitting image. Midnight's voice and the roar of the crowds drew the attention of the Fire Brothers. This carved away some of the tension, but the air still radiated with malice. I'm going to take my seat. I've got 2 kids to cheer on. Think about what I said, babyface, because once you start down the dark path, forever it will dominate your destiny. Endeavor watched his cousin march away, an internal conflict beginning to brew in his mind and soul. You and your damn Star Wars quotes. After the wonderful speech that Bakugo gave, Midnight explained that the obstacle race would determine who would advance to the second phase of the sports festival. All the first-year classes lined up. Commentating on the sports festival events was President Mike with Aizawa as his co-host. The Insomniac was still recovering from his injuries from the USJ, but that wouldn't stop Aizawa from doing his job. And they're off! What section do you think they'll have the hardest time with, Eraserhead? The door. Midoriya was in the middle of the mob of students trying to force their way out of the Coliseum. He kept getting slammed around, and he didn't want to senselessly hurt anyone by countering them away. An idea struck the young man. He grabbed the shoulders of the student in front of him and threw himself out of the crowd. Midoriya began running on his peers' shoulders. He could see his classmates getting out of the pack and further down the course. Moving as he did, the jade-eyed teen ran as fast as he could across the ice to keep up. Looks like we've got Shoto Todoroki from Class 1A in the lead, being tailed by Katsuki Bakugo, also from Class 1A. Those students at your sure are something, Eraserhead! Considering what they went through, they understand the hazards hesitation can bring. They won't take this festival lightly. It was kind of a low blow for Todoroki to freeze everyone up at the start, but he knew that at least his classmates would find a way through. Bakugo was flying on his explosions as he chased after first place. The ground quaked as multiple zero-point robots and other bots from the entrance exam came onto the tracks. Todoroki froze the leading bot in place, allowing himself and a few other students to get through before the hulking machine came crashing down. Bakugo blasted his way through the obstacles with his usual die, die, die style. Midoriya jumped, flipped, and countered the bots away as he continued running, kitsune markings glowing brightly. A one-point robot grabbed onto the young man's foot, tripping him up. Midoriya kicked at the claw-like arm before countering the bot away with both hands. The robot flew away, ripping off Midoriya's shoe in the process. A two-pointer crawled towards the jade-eyed boy, who instinctively kicked at the bot with his shoeless foot. A pulse of counterforce struck the robot. Midoriya didn't have time to think about this new development. He had to advance in the race. It looks like quite a few students have already made it to the fall! A super deep chasm with only stone columns and metal wires bridging the two sides. This is where placements will change hands quickly. Mobility quirks will turn this area into a playground, while others will struggle. But that doesn't mean those folks get left behind. Check out Mei Hatsume from Class 1H. The gear she's rocking is of her own design, and she is just flying. She'd better steer clear of Bakugo. He won't hesitate to take her out. The hell is Midoriya doing? I think he's taking off his remaining shoe and his socks. You know what he's planning? Not a clue. Midoriya, now barefoot, ran full speed for the cliff. This made the audience gasp in fear, especially his father, his toes curled and palms sweaty. Kiyo wasn't sure if he should avert his gaze or keep watching in case the worst came to be. Midoriya threw himself off the ledge. The power of his quirk sent him flying. It sent him further than he thought, and he almost missed his landing. Well, that's new. And that daring move was pulled off by Izuku Midoriya from Class 1A! He could hop, skip, and jump his way to the finish line with those moves! Kiyo sighed in relief and pride, knees shaking slightly. That was one of the most nerve-wracking things he's seen his son do. A large and warm hand clasped onto his shoulder. That was a calculated risk he took, Primo. Reminds me of you back in the day. Don't talk romantic to me, Kujino. What do you mean back in the day? Most of the risks I take are calculated. Not as many as you think. You weren't the brightest student, Thunder Thighs, but I know you aren't stupid. You run headlong into danger without thinking and throw yourself to the front lines when you don't need to. Granted, it's not as bad as the months following. Don't say another word, Easy Bake Oven. Are you saying you wouldn't become emotionally destroyed if one of your loved ones was ripped from your life because you weren't there for them? Endeavor grew silent. His expression became that of pain and regret. I guess we both know the answer to that then, considering how you reacted to what happened to Toya. En realidad, todavía no sé cómo sentirme sobre la desaparición de Toya, o cómo tratar a mi familia. Incluso, mi padre no fue el mejor maestro. Kiyo let the conversation die there, equal parts wanting their talk to end and not understanding a word the Spanish-fluent flame hero was saying. An explosion was heard, and it wasn't one of Bakugo's. More and more of the first years had made it to the minefield. Todoroki had slowed his pace significantly since entering the minefield, allowing the others to catch up. Bakugo was making reckless yet calculated movements to shrink the gap between himself and Icy Hot. The explosive blonde wasn't going to settle for second place. Midori observed the minefield and everyone's movements. His bare feet hurt and were caked with dirt, but he couldn't stop yet. A crazy plan came to mind. It could be very dangerous and kind of stupid, and very difficult to pull off. Dad's gonna kill me if this doesn't work. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. With the services Skillshare provides, you can get access to many in-depth tutorial videos on basically anything you want to learn. Each class that they have is bound to help you with your creative endeavors. Do you want to learn how to write scripts or edit audio? Skillshare has you covered. And with our link, you can have a 14-day free trial. So what are you waiting for? Click the link now and get 14 days worth of classes free. Link in the description below. You folks at home don't need to worry. Those explosives are just really loud and very flashy. Reminds me of a blonde I know. Was that a compliment? No. The audience watched the jade-eyed boy leap into the minefield. Some of the nearby students ran for cover while others froze in fear. Midoriya braced himself as he landed on a dirt mound. Pink clouds of smoke appeared where Midoriya once stood. From the air, he could see Bakugo fighting Todoroki for first place. The explosive blonde was attacking aggressively while the scarred teen stayed defensive. The two stopped their squabbling when a series of explosions came closer and closer. Midoriya was countering the explosions he caused. His movements were the most graceful, and it was hard to calculate how much power to use. This led to a misstep and a poorly timed counter. Fear crossed the faces of Bakugo and Todoroki as Midoriya came rocketing towards them. Oh, we got a three-man wreck near the edge of the minefield. That's gotta hurt. Get the hell off me! Todoroki was the first to react to Bakugo's explosions. He froze the blonde's hands before running away. Midoriya got up quickly to chase after his cousin, but slipped hard on the ice. Sorry, Izuku, but I told you I wouldn't be holding back. Midoriya began to steady his footing when an all-too-familiar snarling could be heard. Bakugo blasted the ice off his hands, scattering the shards like shrapnel. Midoriya countered the oncoming explosion. He skidded across the ice before getting up and booking it. Wait up, Sho-chan! Don't you dare turn your backs on me! Bakugo didn't hold back as he used his explosions to pursue his targets. Like hell, he was gonna fall behind the green Wookiee and Icy Hot. The crowd began to roar as the action put them on the edge of their seats. Kiyo was cheering for his son, while Endeavor's glare wheeled on his own flesh and blood. Confetti began to fall as the winner broke through the finish line ribbon. And in first place is Shoto Todoroki from Class 1A, followed by Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo. Kiyo cheered and applauded his nephew's victory and his son's efforts. He could hear Endeavor chuckling boastfully, something the smaller man was used to. Laugh all you want, meathead, but that's not you competing down there. This isn't your victory. After the rest of the students finished the race, the top 42 moved on to the next stage, the Cavalry battle. Teams of at least 2 would have to be made. This quickly became a problem for Todoroki, as he had 10 million points on his head. Everyone was avoiding him, except for Mei Hatsume, who invited herself onto his team. Uraraka joined Midoriya, and the two began looking for 2 more compatible teammates. This became rather difficult, as most everyone had already had their teams. Of the people that didn't have full teams, there were only 2 that were also having a hard time finding more teammates. Midoriya would have rather had it be someone else, but he and Uraraka weren't left with much of a choice. Fat chance, Wookiee! Don't be hasty, Baku bro. We could use that extra manpower. Strength in numbers and all that, Kirishima said. Kachan, I wouldn't be asking for your help if I didn't think I'd need it. You're strong, and our quirks are good for crowd control, which is valuable for hanging on to any points we grab. With you and me as the side horses, Kirishima at the front, and Uraraka as the rider, we can advance to the next part of the festival. Forget about just advancing. We'll take these extras down. That's the spirit, I think, Uraraka said sheepishly. Ida, Hatsume, and Sero were discussing positioning while Todoroki watched Midoriya's conversation from afar. A pang of deep sadness and a sense of betrayal crept into his mind when he saw his cousin join forces with Bakugo. Hey, fearless leader, you want to be the rider? Sero said. Yeah, sure. The battle was about to begin. All 12 teams were set with their point bands on the riders. Uraraka had her team's 710-point headband around her neck. She was ready to carry the burden of protecting those points and grabbing more for her team. All right, boys, let's do this. Midnight announced, Begin! Most teams made a beeline for Todoroki's team. The 10 million plus headband was too tempting to pass up. Head horse Ida kept his team moving quickly. The hover shoes Hatsume and Sero were wearing helped them keep up. Todoroki had his team focus on defense. There were a few teams that fought for the smaller point values and to take out some of the competition. A few teams were quickly taken out, their points snatched right from under their noses in some cases. That wasn't as easy a task when going against Uraraka's team. Bakugo and Midoriya were the perfect pair for throwing people off balance to try to snag their bands, as well as keeping unwanted attackers at a distance. The chaos was hard to keep track of, even for those watching in the stands. Todoroki's team was what drew the crowd in with massive attacks and evasive maneuvers. The spectacle was the perfect distraction for the groups using more sneaky strategies, like Monoma and Shinzo. The buzzer went off and only 4 teams had any points remaining. Team Todoroki, Team Uraraka, Team Monoma, and Team Shinzo. Those 4 groups would be advancing. However, Shota and Ojiro, 2 of Shinzo's teammates, dropped out due to not remembering the cavalry battle at all. Tetsu and Shiozaki would be taking their places. A tournament was to be the event to close out the first year's portion of the sports festival. But first, lunch. You want to get some food, Kiyo? No thanks, I've got a call to make. There are a couple of kids I saw who I'd like to see intern at the Crimson Torch. Then I'm gonna see Greenbean. But you are going to eat, right? Of course! What, you're worried about me, babyface? I just know how you get when you focus on something. Not to mention the 10 or so years of silence you have kept me and my family in the dark about your life. We should catch up sometime. I talk to Fuyumi and Natsuo about once a week on the phone, and I do my best to visit Rei at least once a month. They're in the loop because they want to be, and I want them to know. Honestly, I'm surprised you haven't figured out why I cut contact with you specifically. Care to enlighten me? Big brother, you're a smart man. I'm sure you'll find the answer yourself, even if you aren't looking for it. Kiyo walked off, leaving Endeavor perplexed and conflicted. It had been many years since Hizashi had called him Big Brother. President Mike had finished his lunch early and was strutting around the Coliseum. Being the boisterous extrovert he was, he wanted to talk to new people. Midnight and Aizawa wanted to enjoy the rest of their break in the lounge, so the loud blonde was on his own. President Mike found himself down a hall where an older man with black hair was just getting done with a phone call. The voice hero recognized the hero costume the man wore from the news. Time for President Mike to be his charismatic self. Yo, Spitfire Kiyo! How you be, fire breather? Oh, President Mike, I'm fine. Do you need something? Not necessarily, but since you're here and it's on my mind, I've got a question. How does it feel to be number 17 in the hero rankings? What? You must be mistaken. I'm not even in the top 20 heroes last I checked. You haven't been that low in the rankings for about 8 years, Fireboy! Check it out! President Mike pulled up the hero ranking list on his phone. The blonde was right. Kiyo was 17th in the rankings. Oh wow. That's what my finance guy was talking about. I never paid much attention to that stuff personally. I help people and fight bad guys because it's the right thing to do. That's deep, man. Can I quote you on that? Midnight walked around the corner and approached the 2 men. Hizashi, there you are. Yes. There was a pause as the pro-heroes looked at each other with uncomfortable expressions. Well, this is awkward. Different spelling, I assume? Yeah, mostly. Anyway, we should get back to our places soon, Mike. Aizawa's talking with All Might, so he'll meet you in the announcer's box. You said you're Kiyo, right? Those photos of you don't do you justice. You've got that handsome, boyish charm that I just adore. Tell me, are you free after the festival? President Mike watched the Spitfire hero's face turn pink as he did his best to maintain eye contact with the R-rated hero. Thank you, Midnight, for the compliment and offer, but I must decline. I've got to go. I'd like to see my son before the tournament starts. Kiyo ran off before the UA teachers could consider stopping him. You know, I've heard he's got nice thighs. Really now? Wish I could have had a look. You're both idiots. Let's go. We've got work to do. Midoriya was walking back to the 1A seats when he saw his dad running his way. A smile came to the young man's face. Hey, Dad! Hey, Green Bean. I would have been here sooner, but I got held up. The father and son talked for a bit about the festival, so far as the rest of Class 1A filed into their seats. Kirishima stopped in his tracks, staring hard at the man his classmate was talking to for a long while. Hey, dumb hair! The hell are you staring at? That's Midoriya's dad? Yeah, that's him. What'd he ask? That's Kiyo. Yeah, and? Kirishima ran towards the Midoriyas, for he was a man on a mission. He grabbed Izuku by the shirt and began shaking him. Midoriya! Why didn't you tell me your dad was Crimson Riot's sidekick? It didn't come up, and you didn't ask. Hey, take it easy, Red. You can let my boy go now. I take it you're a fan of Old Crimson? Kirishima did as he was told, as he looked at Kiyo with stars in his eyes. He couldn't believe this was really happening. Yes, sir! He's been my favorite hero and my inspiration since I was a kid. Crimson Riot was just so manly! How he was able to fight and defend others despite being afraid, and seeing you continue his legacy is just so cool! Yeah, Riot was an incredible hero and great mentor. He taught me a lot. I gotta know, Spitfire Kiyo, what was it like to work with Crimson Riot? The conversation was interrupted when President Mike's voice came over the speakers. The lineup for the tournament was about to be announced. Looks like I'll have to tell you later, Red. And just call me a Kiyo. There's no need to say my full hero name. Kirishima thanked Kiyo for his time, as Izuku and Bakugo dragged their classmate back to their seats. And that's our video for the day, folks, so thank you all for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it. Before I go, there's a little bit of housekeeping I want to go over with you all. First, We the Celestials has many other channels and content for your entertainment and viewing pleasures. All the information you'll need is right below in the description. So please, feel free to check out all the other incredible content our team creates. Second, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details are also in the description. Give the writer and the editors some love. They do a lot of hard work here. But that's all for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have an amazing day. And as always, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and stay awesome. This has been Tim. Mustache out.